And welcome back to Washington Commanders Insider. Today we are looking at the NFL trade market as we've got some breaking news here that suggests that the NFL trade market has already started to heat up. And so let's go ahead and jump into it. And so right now we are looking at a Bleacher Report article that is geared around Myles Garrett. And so the recent breaking news around Myles Garrett is that he has officially requested a trade from the Cleveland Browns, saying that he wants to play for a Super Bowl contender. And so, in this article here that you can find on Bleacher Report, they are looking at 5 possible landing destinations for Myles Garrett via trade. So they do talk about the Green Bay Packers, they talk about the Chicago Bears, and they talk about the Kansas City Chiefs, the New England Patriots, and the fifth and final team that they have listed is the Washington Commanders. And so we're getting ready to take a look at a suggested trade that may get the Cleveland Browns to send Myles Garrett over to the Washington Commanders. And so first we're going to look at that, see if it really makes sense for the Washington Commanders. And so this is the suggested trade that they have. Keep in mind that the Washington Commanders do have 7 picks in this upcoming draft. And so one of the things that they led with in this article is that it is definitely going to take some draft capital to get Myles Garrett, but they're saying, could it be a possible deal where the Washington Commanders would send pick 29 and then also to number 61, number 79, and number 148 in this year's draft? And so that's going to be our first round pick, second round pick, third round pick, and our fifth round pick. Remember, out of 7 picks, all those picks would be going to the Cleveland Browns in exchange for Myles Garrett. And so, does it really help the Washington Commanders first and foremost if they get Myles Garrett? And so, I think definitely, absolutely. I think that Myles Garrett is absolutely a player that you certainly would want on your football team. And just thinking about it, just from a Washington fan and just a fan that has really looked at this team for so long, and just thinking about some of the great pass rushers that we've had. I mean, we've had Ryan Kerrigan, back in the day when we were winning Super Bowls, Dexter Manley and Charles Mann, those are players that come to mind. Ken Harvey, the great linebacker that we had there. We did have Bruce Smith come over from the Buffalo Bills. He was also playing on our defensive line there for a second. LeVar Arrington is another player to think about. And so just throwing some of those players out there, and I think really the commonality here is just that the Washington Commanders, I'm not sure if they've had like a legit pass rusher in quite some time, and somebody that is just skilled at getting to the quarterback and getting sacks. And so I think, this would be huge for the Washington Commanders if they did this. And I mean, when you look at it statistically with what he just did in this year, look, he got 14 sacks. He had 47 tackles, but 22 tackles for loss. I mean, by far, that would lead the Washington Commanders in sacks and also 2 tackles for losses, even though he only had 47 tackles for the year. But still, he had 3 forced fumbles as well, which is another great thing. Here's a defensive player that can really cause some turnovers and havoc. You look at this defense, I just talked about he had 14 sacks. The Washington Commanders as a whole had 43 sacks. They were 13th in total defense, 18th in scoring defense. Like, I think that would be huge for the Washington Commanders if they could get him. And does it make sense to go after him? Look, I think that's a little bit of a steep asking price. Like, I get the fact that the Washington Commanders want to maximize, Jayden Daniels and this young quarterback. You have a great contract right now. You have a series of players that came in on a 1-year deal, but I think you have to think a little bit more long term. And I just really get the feeling, with Adam Peters and, him at the GM and just his front office. It's just a front office that, yes, they want to make, big plays in free agency and also via trade, but I don't see that this team is going to reach that deep with the draft capital, because I think that is significant. And make no mistake about it, like I said, when you look at Myles Garrett, I mean, he's one of a kind. Like, he is outstanding when it comes to getting to the quarterback. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he has averaged 14 sacks in 2024, 2023. He had 16 in 2022. He's got a combined 102.5 sacks. And so, like I said, that type of production like that, I mean, I'm not sure you're going to necessarily get that, just right immediately from any draft pick. But still, I think the Washington Commanders might, be wise here. And probably, I think that this is a bit too rich, but who knows? Because I know the Cleveland Browns, they have a lot of needs for their football team. And so I certainly understand them wanting to get the max out of this. But I don't see the Washington Commanders going this deep in the draft capital. I think maybe, if they can take away some of these picks that they want, maybe the Commanders go off and do that. And so next up, I wanted to talk about another possible target for the Washington Commanders. And this comes with more breaking news on the trade market here. And so apparently this is centered around Cooper Kupp. And what I guess has recently come out here is that the team has informed him that they will be seeking a trade immediately, and they're going to start to work with him, I guess, and his family to get him into the right place where he's going to be competing for championships, just paraphrasing what he has here on his Twitter, and him saying that, look, he still wants to play football at a high level. He said he's highly motivated. He's healthier than ever, looking forward to playing elite football for years to come. And so, look, this is interesting. And he also, says that this wasn't by choice. So he's saying that the team is really making a business decision here. And so should the Washington Commanders maybe consider going out and getting Cooper Kupp? And so I think, for the right price, maybe they do go out and get him. I think that really the issue that you have with him is that, he's only played in, I think, 33 games over so many seasons since he had really had a couple seasons where he didn't miss a game. And so we've talked about that before from a health standpoint. You wonder, is he going to be able to hold up at this point in time? But aside from that, we know that he's an elite wide receiver. He can work inside, he can work outside. And certainly you think about that, pairing that with Terry McLaurin, suddenly that becomes scary with what you have with Jaden Daniels. And then you're thinking about what you could possibly do with your running backs and things like that. Like, it just changes the ball game for this offense. And so, the question is, do you take a chance really with the health? And also, too, do you take a chance really with the contract as well? Because he's just signed a 3-year contract extension worth $80.1 million. He's in the first season of that. And so that is where I think the Rams are maybe getting ahead of this, because right now he's guaranteed salary next season or his guaranteed salary is only at $5 million at this point in time for next season, but he has no guaranteed money in 2026. And I guess what they're saying here is if they're getting to a point where if they can save 20 million towards their 2025 cap, I guess, if they go ahead and they make a decision on him. And I guess if the Rams cut Cooper Kupp this offseason, they will save 15 million in cash and 7.5 million as far as against the salary cap. And so they're trying to get ahead of that. They clearly look like they're going in a different direction. And I think, unlike Myles Garrett, I think you have to look at that situation and say, maybe if you're taking a chance on him, could you get him for maybe a 3rd or a 4th round selection? I think that you're probably not having to give up as much draft capital. I think there's a bit more of a short window here. And to be clear, like I said before, he is going to come in and he is going to instantly help this football team, because our second leading receiver on the team was Zach Ertz. Just this year alone, he had 67 receptions, 710 yards. He had 6 touchdowns as well. He averaged 5 yards a catch. And when you look at the Washington Commanders, you look at Zach Ertz. Look, he had 654 yards. He averaged 9.9 an average here. And so you are going to see definitely an uptake in production from the wide receivers if you bring him over. You think about the fact that, like I said, he can just run just about any route. And also, too, the one thing that I do love if you do get him over there, when you look at Sean McVay, you look at the way that he runs his offense, liking to really set up the run and then go with the play action and things like that. I think it mirrors a lot of what the Washington Commanders want to do with their passing game. And so, I just think it's interesting. I do think that this trade for Cooper Kupp would be something that maybe would be more realistic based off the draft capital for the Washington Commanders and also to the need as well. I think that you could give up some draft capital here, still be able to bring in some young talent. You can even go get a wide receiver. You can still go get an edge rusher here in the draft. You get Cooper Kupp over here. You get a guy that is going to be into that short window of time, really help you compete. And I think it's just a matter of going ahead and taking on that contract, which, again, he's going to be in the second year of a 3-year deal. So it's not like you're having to go through it so much with the contract. And so, anyway, let me know in the comments here, do you think the Washington Commanders do give up this amount of draft capital, hypothetically, to go out and get a pass rusher like Myles Garrett? Do you feel like, they do go after a guy like Cooper Kupp, who is now, it seems like the Rams are making him available? Maybe they can get him for a third or fourth round pick. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And so, as I always say, go Commanders, and I will see you in the next one. All right, peace.